welcome to the next episode of our podcast. This is Sarah, the artist behind Pinselgeschichten. Hello! And we are her entourage.
I imagine that you said podcast, and then it's
like lunch.
3 little piggies in front of cameras.
So this is our lovely moderator Daniel, who is also happens to be the husband of Sarah.
Yes.
Coincidences.
And I'm Justina. Hi.
Who happens to be a very good friend of the two of us and partner in crime on the Draft Initiative series, I'd say.
Daniel, start. Please.
Do your thing.
Let's
The thing you
see.
do with the paper sheets.
Let's see
Origami.
what question came up last week that I can now read aloud.
I would die. Laughing. I would hyperventilate it like, ooh, calm down, Sarah.
Why are there coffee marks on your face?
Oh. Because I drank coffee. I always have them every time I shoot Taco Challenge. I have to make sure. Is it okay?
You should have cappuccino with little milk
Yeah.
weird.
So,
I do have it with the
actually, this was a very clever setup segue that I'm going to do. Now, if you have coffee marks in your face, are these considered line work or coloring?
coloring. There's no line work there.
Well, it seems like a line.
No, that's a wrinkle. That's a different kind of a thing. It's me decaying. It doesn't have to do anything with line work. Sorry, but yeah, it's coloring. It's depending on the coffee brand and the color of your skin. It's either a warm brown or a cold brown.
And there we go.
Yeah, color theory.
So I'm just gonna take a nap here from now because she's gonna do the whole thing.
I'm not gonna. You have to.
I mean, we already heard in a past episode, like 2 weeks ago.
Because we are from
I
the
just
future.
remember
So proud of you.
that you prefer line work over coloring, and you prefer coloring things over line work.
Yes.
Now, to me, as the Lee-man of this episode,
I'm so loving
We should
him,
print
but
a t-shirt with that.
yeah, BGG-Con, here we go.
There's obviously a difference between both of them, but I could imagine that one can see them as either guidelines that you lay down first and then color out, as in a coloring book, or you go in coloring first and then use the lines to capture detail on the color scape that you have. Is that the different approach for you both? How to do stuff? Is it like
Really? For me, it's a whole different story.
Well, I always approach it the same way.
okay?
I have to make an effort to not do it, and that will be in an upcoming episode where we already said we're gonna do that. But the thing is, my brain is wired for colors, not for shapes so much, and I really have to work to get perspective, proportions, things done. The line work, that's work.
but
Coloring is no work for me.
But you're doing this first?
I have to do the line work first because that is the composition of the painting.
Okay.
That's depth, that's size, that's positioning of thing, that's angle, that's perspective. I have to get the work out of the way.
Now, you don't use line work on that, but I remember your Palettendreckbilder are kind of
They're reverse.
the reverse
Yes.
to that, where you
Yes.
start painting colors and
I'm
then
just-
have shapes emerge from it.
Right.
I mean, obviously for something like Draw for Initiative,
I cannot do that.
where you have, or where you want to convey something in terms of a story, you can just paint stuff and then something happens to be.
Well, it
Not really.
would be quite the challenge, I guess. That's what I, for a little while, tried with that, the wine picture, viticulture.
Viticulture, yeah.
I tried to go with the colors there first. I had a rough shape with the line work, but it's just sketchy. And afterwards, I tried and went in with line work, and yeah, it was a whole different approach to me. It was a whole different story.
So do you, in general, do you sit down and select a color palette first in your mind before drawing a picture?
I don't.
Or is it the sketch that then
No,
gets
the
into
sketch
line
is
work,
the work.
and then after the sketch you decide, okay, I need these colors. Oh, I see these colors matching.
I know the colors because I stay very close to the colors of the game. So if they are not saturated as they are, for example, with Zombicide, I know I stay in the grays and browns with the colors and maybe olive greens, but the color is given by the color of the board game, always. But when you take it out of the draw for initiative scenario and when it just comes to painting, I always say I do have two brains, the one here and the one here. And my hand brain...
That doesn't make sense.
No, my hand brain decides which colors to take.
Please elaborate.
That's subconsciousness. My subconscious brain decides which colors to take that fit together, how I see them, what I can do with them. I do not think about, would that blue fit with that green, or is that, I don't do that. I learned the theory at one point, but it's actually, I would go so far to say I just recognized color theory. I seem to be a person that sees colors differently and just knows without learning in school, like how the color wheel goes, what are warm colors, what are cold colors, what fits together, what doesn't.
But that for me as the ongoing Lehman, it's that is something more I would attribute to illustration and not necessarily painting. Where
it goes with every medium that I use. So it's not only watercolors.
So for me, this is something that belongs to illustration or comics, or something where someone sits down and then says, "Oh, I have my color wheel, and now I will have my triangle on here, and these are the complementing colors, and these I want to bring in there, and I will go forth by selecting one or two that are also in the board game, but look up in a color wheel type of thing. These match up to them, and then use them." But you're saying you're not doing that.
I'm not doing that. I'm sometimes, that's more with the art journal though, where I really let loose. I'm not really looking which color I pick up. I just go with a brush into a pen and then I just go.
So what about you? Are you the color wheel illustrator, or are you the...
Well, I'm the puzzly illustrator. As I told, I have my line work first, and I have usually no clue what colors I'm going to put in there. So you mentioned in an earlier episode about that you would be the person who wanted to get through with it at some point, who would at least a little lose the patience with it. I'm that person too. So I go first with the things that I guess that are more important than others. So when I paint, for example, a certain person or a thing from a game, I look at what colors it has and try to go with that. And everything else that's less important, I'm just working around, which is usually background, and then just filling in afterwards. And then usually I have no feeling for whatsoever about that thing, so I have to ask her oftentimes, so what would go with that, and what. So I'm in a learning process about that. I'm often asking her about what's fitting together. Is that what I have here a more cold green or a more warm green? I really can't tell sometimes until she says, well, this is more like that, and I'm like, oh yes, now that you say it, I'm seeing it too, but it doesn't come naturally to me. It's hard. It's work.
So does any of you actually sit down and think about what kind of emotions a specific color is evoking, and then try to convey that? Or is it, let's say, Pandemic, which is obviously a game about terror, is that something where you would go in and say, oh, I chose these colors because they, are not terrorizing, but they're at least make you feel uneasy in some way or form? Do you
blue and gray?
But not the colors themselves would make
no.
feel
Go
uneasy.
say Forbidden Island, blue. But Forbidden Island is a warm blue. It's almost turquoise, teal colored, almost. It's way more on the green part.
The Caribbean blue.
Yes, and Pandemic is more like almost very, very
blue.
dark violet blue. Almost, it's way colder blue, but still kind of warm-ish. Almost, you would say, it sits in between a very dark purple or violet, which is a cold color, more blue than red in there, and an indigo, which is a very, very dark, very warm blue. So it sits in between there with gray. Gray, cold gray, it's the despair. It's blue and gray. That's Pandemic.
Well, I get what she says when I look at it, but when I choose colors, it's harder. I'm usually just going with what works for me, and I try to get more to the point to express certain emotions, certain situations in colors. But as I said, I'm still in progress learning that. And so you won't see, or you won't probably get as much emotion from just watching at the colors in my paintings as you would with hers.
But with yours, it's more the poses and things that people do, especially in the Zombicide painting.
Yeah.
That was almost, well, the people themselves and the zombies, they were just like in the board game, color-wise, but there was no background color. So it was more of an illustration, kind of a sketch thing that you did. But the poses definitely said, well, zombie, you're gonna die today.
So
and
that's what my hand brain does.
Yeah, yours is more with
the line, with the shapes and stuff. It comes more naturally to me, but I have to say I wasn't able to do those things from the beginning. It was work. I started drawing from original Dragon Ball and stuff, and try to draw persons in different situations, positions, and it looked like crap. To be honest, it looked like crap, but still I had friends who had said, oh, that looks far better than mine. And I didn't feel like it was really looking better, but at some point I was even able to change those drawings I made from Dragon Ball Z back then in the time for sweets and other stuff, which I couldn't afford because I hadn't money. So it was seemingly more valuable to the others than what I could amass. So it's different. It was a learning process there too. And for now I'm sometimes like drawing a character and I'm like, oh, that looks quite all right. I couldn't know I could do that. I'm just sometimes surprised myself.
So I was just about to, so you have that too. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not only me. That's nice to know there's somebody else who is surprised by what they can do sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Well, not necessarily looking like crap, but kind of related to that, but more to the line work part. I recently saw an article that was about anime and how often perspective is wrong.
Yeah.
So in
my nemesis.
I guess in school you learn that you select the point on the plane and then you draw perspective lines and then kind of everything has to fall under those lines.
And you have the horizontal line set first. And
anime seems to have a lot of notorious examples where there's multiple points where size does not correspond correctly to whatever is else on there. I don't recall you guys doing the I'm going to select the point and then I'm doing perspective lines and doing
I hate that. I should do it. I hate it.
And is that something you hate and you just ignore because you hate it, or is that something where you say this is just not important enough?
It's not important enough because I think I convey emotions and not realistically angled and perspective kind of a thing. You know Wanda when you see her from Zombicide. It doesn't matter if her nose is a bit flat because she's actually not having the right angle of the head. I don't care.
Now, let me ask the question to someone who cares about line work.
Yeah.
So-
I know what's gonna come. I know.
Well,
And I'm so with you.
we had this talk a little. I care to a certain point. It's not easy to do. And I'm often thinking about, oh, that doesn't look right. I'm not thinking about, okay, there's my horizontal line and there's my focal point. But I have a certain feeling what looks right and what doesn't. Still, I'm not putting too much effort to get this perfect because we are not Rembrandt. We are not Bosch or someone from the Renaissance or earlier. It's not what we do. We are... We try different approaches. And you were mentioning anime. I would more refer to that problem in manga because there it's even worse, I guess. And worse in
I think actually that is kind of unfair for me to mention something like anime or any kind of cartoon that is multi-layered by nature. I guess in a manga or in a painting itself, you usually have just that one painting. You don't have different layers that you want to paint. You don't have a background layer that has its own perspective and some foreground guys.
So certain points you have. It's there. If you have scenes where you have like a couple in a park and there's a bench in the midground and the couple's in the foreground and you have to get a certain depth in there too. And it's not easy without colors. I can tell you that. It's hard work. And they do that with different shadings and stuff and they have to think about that too. But what I recognize is that at least manga authors often don't really put much effort into the perspective of certain faces because that's their style. That's what they go with. You have to be able to recognize the eyes, even if the character is in a terrible position to be recognized. So they still go with the same style, although it wouldn't fit there. If you get what I mean, it's hard to explain.
Also,
But, yeah.
I guess they have to pump out so many pictures as that's like factory work.
It's hard. It's a hard line of work.
Yeah.
Really, it is.
With the Draw for Initiative specifically, you mentioned in an earlier episode, I'm pretty okay with painting portraits or drawing portraits, but these are not characters. These are real people. And I can have a reference photo or I can draw from life. That's fine.
Which is
that's
essentially
fine
a reference photo.
Yeah, but it's a moving
It's
photo.
different. That's different. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's but I can work with perspective and angle and line work. There is way easier for me than for example, the line work in Draw for Initiative. We said it so often. I'm sketching out my things and I'm inking right away because I don't fiddle with the details when it comes to the characters. I don't care as much. I don't want to be realistic or photorealistic with the paintings that we do. I want to have kind of a cartoonish, illustration-y kind of style. I want the impression that I don't care if my line work is perfect, but I also think that would I give myself the time to have like the lines, horizontal lines and depth and the point and I don't know that all that crap that I don't like. I think my people in the paintings would be way more realistic and right looking than they are now. So
Yeah. Still, I don't think you would really need that. The thing you need to do while drawing, while being at it, is putting the pen away, having a look at it, and being like, hold on, that looks suspicious in a way, and then trying to figure out why and what line needs to be changed. It's often just a little detail that's wrong. I had that with Die Verbotene Herberge.
the Bloody Inn.
The Bloody Inn. I have chosen quite a difficult angle there. And you had to draw the heads bigger in order to get that a little,
Yeah, you're looking pretty much from above,
it's
kind of.
it's isometric side view on things. And I had to think, okay, I need to make the heads bigger, I need to make the feet smaller, or they are being really comically cartoonish things. And still, within that room I'm drawing, it's not really fitting. And I'm aware of that. And it nags me a bit, but I need to amass with which is how much time do I want to put into it before I get finished. And there's only so much time and energy I can put into a certain picture.
I think, would we have the time that we want and not the time that we have to work with, which is after hours
And the motivation
2 days
to
a
do line
week.
work.
No, the thing is, I want to get to the colors so badly that I put aside the line
Patience.
work. Yes,
Young-
but young hobbit, I know, but I paint so many paintings a week. I paint about 40 hours a week. And then I do the editing, and then I do the stuff, and then I do the social media. So painting, the time is pretty limited. It's almost as bad as it is with Tina. She has a couple of hours twice a week, and she has to produce a series with me. So she cannot, or very likely not, put 5 hours into one painting.
So yeah, I understand that.
I think we would change that if we could, right? It's
Gladly.
paint for 5 hours every
I
day.
mean, it seems that at some point you have to cut corners, and
Yes.
you're willing to sacrifice the line work. Though, now, from my perspective, and for those of you who don't know, I tend to paint miniatures from time to time, and that is actually that solves some of the problems that you
Yes.
guys
You can.
describe.
You can angle the thingy.
But you get new problems.
But kinda. I would have, or I do have a hard time imagining doing the line work by myself. I would have probably less problem doing the coloring. But from a miniature painting perspective, you have to exaggerate the colors and very specifically the shadows. Otherwise,
It's
looks
hard.
so
there's not enough. And in fact, the most difficult stuff is where you have a gradient shadow over something like cloth or stuff that to do that. So as you said, you're willing to cut corners with the lines. So
Yes.
you would be fine having maybe the wrong perspective in the lines. Are you trying to fix that with shadow coloring
Exactly.
in post,
I-
so
and
to
I-
speak? Or
No,
is
the
that
thing is, I know that I can. So that's also one. If I couldn't do that, I would maybe not cut the corners as much as I do, because I can cover up mishaps when it comes to angle with color. I cannot do that with proportions. If I'm wrong there, I'm always wrong. I'm not going to be able to fix it. But if it's the angle, I can kind of work with the coloring a bit to have a very heavy shadow, or have it super light and almost like a key white kind of a part of a painting. But if I wouldn't be able to do that, I would probably not cut the corners as much with the line work. So.
how's it for you? Are you trying to get it right, at least for the line work first, so that even if the shadows are not perfect, it would still be consistent?
That's pretty much what I do. Because what I see first when I do a painting, it's the line work that I do. Far before I get to finish that thing, that's my basic for doing everything else. And for me, it's important to see, okay, that first step works out, and it looks like it should be, like with that. What was her name? Eve from Zombie Set. I always go back to that. No, what was her name? I'm not good with names. Also, Amy? No.
Who, Zombie Set?
Yeah.
The purple girl?
Yeah.
Amy.
Yeah. And she was. That pose.
Ooh.
In the first sketch I made, it looked exactly like I wanted, and having to put it down on the sheet of paper was like really hard, although I achieved that in my first try, and I was really mad about that, and I couldn't go on until that really sat there like I had it in my mind, and until it looked right from the perspective and everything. That first needed to be right, and when I go on after that with the colors, I'm not that.
You are forgiving yourself.
Yeah, I'm because I know about my inabilities, and I know I'm just trying to get better there, and that it needs time. So I'm experimenting with that a little, and I'm trying at least to put the shadows down like they should be, like they look right to me. But I'd rather put much effort into the first step than the final steps. I'm different in that perspective.
Yeah, and then there's one thing in addition that I noticed, because you only come in asking about colors when it comes to the background. So you have your subjects, all the important things for you. They're done, they're colored, they're shaded, everything, and then it comes to the background, and you ask, what would fit here? And then the mantra I always say, and you're rolling your eyes sometimes when you're not in the patient mood. Where's your light coming from? Where's your light coming from? Where's your light coming from?
I was just
she's
about
like,
to...
She's like, not again. I don't know. What do I do?
I was just about to ask, because both of you actually talked about perspective and shadows, but only from a perspective visual angle, not from a light source point of view.
That's how I color, though. I don't choose the colors, but that's the reason why I pick a certain color. Is I need a dark shadow, I need something fitting or contrasting, and that's that color to go for, that color to go for, that color to go for. So the progress in my painting is sketch. So the idea is there, sketch, line work, knowing where the light comes from, coloring in the way that it would be if the light source would be on the top left side of the corner. So that's how I decide to go for it. So it's automatically in the coloring mode kind of thing. There's light and shadow for me.
Yeah, it's a hard thing for me again. I know you can do so many things with light. You can get really dramatic, really calm, or you can really get emotion into it if you are able to put the light right. And I know all that, and I wish I could do better, but I'm still needing to learn at this point too. And I only can get better, I guess.
Again, my life there is so much easier because I can actually hold up the light to something. I had to do that actually with the Darth Vader thing on with the lightsaber, because I could hold up a red LED and just look where it would go.
That's so cool, yeah.
That's things that we have to know. We have to know the physics behind the light and shadow thing, where it bounces off, or where the real dark shadows are. We cannot test it. We could test it by putting the minis down if there are some at the board game and see where the light goes, but we don't do that. We just have to know the physics behind how does it work.
Also, you have to think again about the color of the light and how it would change everything else. So I'm usually just going for a white light from the ceiling. But I guess I could figure it out if I wanted to. But that's really a time issue.
So before we turn the lights out, let me check the next topic and maybe give you a hint for next week, where you can join us again and have me ask very important questions and maybe get an answer. This is about the origin story.
There's my blast from the past.
Do we need to get the chopsticks to have the claws?
So thank you for joining us, and I hope to see you again next week